everybody. Pop-up show. Fair use. Fair use. All right, what's going on, everybody? I'm not expecting anybody to be here right about now because this is a follow-up after Fatty's show a little bit early. The only reason that I'm kicking this off right about now is because there was some nonsense that went down that was nothing short of misinformation, and you guys know I don't roll like that. Now, of course, it's Fatty's show, so there's nothing that I have to say that I can do right here, which I will not do on his platform. All right, we do two different things. What I do not like is when we have members. Let me go ahead and show my face here. When we have members of what I call the Blackface Brigade. All right, and the Blackface Brigade are those blacks who get trotted out or who trot out on their own to defend what I call white male victimhood in blackface. So essentially what we're hearing is the same commentary, bitching about immigrants, all right, fussing about fussing about jobs being taken away. Then, of course, always talking about how America provides opportunity, that anyone crying about what's going on is a victim or is claiming crying victimhood for whatever. But the fact is that we don't realize that the only people who are complaining about being victims right now are the same ones who are victimizing everyone else around them. But the minute you say something about the actions that they are participating in that disparages others, oh, stop being a victim. Oh, you're on the plantation. Get off the Democrat plantation. The funny thing here about this is that I don't see anyone on the Democratic Party removing Black history. I don't see anybody on the Democratic Party calling Black history racist, divisive, revisionist. I don't see anyone on the Democratic Party retracting the TPS of folks who came into the country legally and who are going through the process. I don't see Democrats waiting outside of court hearings, and as soon as folks who are either coming illegally or working on getting to the country legally come from a hearing, arresting them and deporting them. I don't see any of that. But yet, every time I happen to go on some of these panels where Fatty or some folks open it up for comment that goes a little bit off skew of the actual title or what do they call the main event, we get all types of blacks who slink in talking this nonsense. Again, this divisive white man's burden racial rhetoric through black lips. Unfreaking believable. Marcus, what's going on, man? Yeah, there might not be a lot of people up in here tonight, man. I just happened to do this only because of the fact I just came from Fatty's show, as I said. And once again, Eric shows up with his nonsense. All right, so if you listen to Eric and if you don't know any better, what Eric is saying sounds like it's true. Now, if anybody remembers Jake was one of the guys who used to show up on Fatty's panel when we used to do Valhalla. And the whole purpose of Valhalla was to have, as Fatty said tonight, John, you don't negotiate with your friends, you negotiate with your enemies. But here's the thing, I don't negotiate with terrorists. And that's exactly what these folks from Valhalla are generally, are insurrection supporting, seditious speaking, far-right extremists, AKA white nationalists and terrorists. That's exactly what these guys are, what they support in their ideals. However, in fairness, what Fatty does is try to provide a place where you can have the conversation. But eventually, it gets broken down to where someone's going to let out nigga and all this other type of stuff back and forth. But when you have volatile individuals on those type of shows, what do you expect? Again, essentially, it's all going to be entertainment. And I am not a part of that entertainment thing. I like to think of myself as edutainment. But nonetheless, I'm getting off script here. Again, as I'm saying, I'm not expecting a lot of people to be here. I'm expecting more so of this to be in rotation with the replay game. So as I said before, I'm only here right now because of being extremely annoyed with, once again, the Blackface Brigade. All right, tonight, that brigade was made up of Coco, the health coach, Eric, the general agitator, and Fantastic. Now, side note, as much as you see Fantastic and I get into it going back and forth, we do not have an unhealthy relationship, so to say. Now, we disagree across the board, again, because he wears the red hat, not as much as he probably has in the past, but he has shown his divine support for Trump. As everyone knows, I am not a Trump supporter. Here, let's go ahead and just make this clear where I stand. Get a good look at it. If anyone has ever wondered where my politics are, where I stand, I'm not a raging progressive, but I'm nowhere being any type of conservative either. So I just want to make that clear here, all right? Agent Smith, what's going on, man? I know you're in the job at the moment. So I appreciate you swinging through. I'm not expecting a lot of people to be here. This is probably the third time that I've said this. But again, as you know, Smith, we don't do misinformation. However, if I happen to be on somebody else's platform and it jumps off, I'll make a statement, but I'm not going to stay there long and try to fight it for the most part. That's the job of that host. All right. I'm going to probably run this for maybe an hour or so, but as usual, it depends upon what type of interaction we get. So if anyone else shows up, cool. If not, I'm still going to do what I got to do, but you know how it works. By the way, folks, if you take a look here, Agent Smith has rolled with the show long enough that he and Robert Platinum have earned their wrenches. Now, unlike everybody else that Smith, Platinum, and I know, and sometimes we go on their platforms or visit their shows, I don't give wrenches out for people I know just in passing, or people I've known for a couple of years now, who don't come to the show and stay and follow the show. Now, I appreciate anyone who comes by, drops hello, hey, what's going on, John? Hey, holler back at you. Thank you. Stay around for a while if you can. But anyone who has a wrench on my platform is because of the fact they have come to the show, they have listened from start to finish, and they have been here for at least a year, which is about how long I've been doing this. About, I'll say, a year and a couple of months. Agent Smith was one of the first few folks who came through, initially to be an agitator for shits and giggles, but after he started listening, he kind of caught on to what we were doing over here. To the point now you see that he has his wrench. Again, shout out to you, Smith. All right, so let's go ahead and get on with this if we're going to do it, all right? So I'm just going to go ahead and share my whole screen because I don't have any audio that I'll be sharing tonight. All right, so the show was initially about Nicki Minaj. And again, I don't do these type of shows. I have no concern about that. But the statement that was put out there is that, did Nicki Minaj betray Black women? So you may have had, I think the young lady's name was Bean, where she said yes, that Nicki Minaj betrayed Black women because of her just looking past all the instances of what Black women, or Blacks or minorities in general, have endured. But the conversation was specifically around Nicki. So the commentary drifted from the struggles of Black women, talking about struggles in the workplace. DEI, although is not meant for Black women, but it was something that still was associated with Black women, taking the L on that, so to speak. Bean gave a very good and thorough description of why she felt that Black women were betrayed. Then someone named Prashana went next and said no, she did not feel Nicki Minaj had betrayed Black women because Nicki Minaj was all about herself, which I agree with that as well. context is a little bit different. I say that she did not betray black women because she's never shown any interest that she was standing up and speaking for black women. She has stood up and spoken for herself because she's in the money game. Call it what it is. But somehow, Coco, the health coach, got up there and turned it into something that went a different direction, that Fatty minded out a little bit and then started attracting folks for another conversation. It seemed like the show was dying out, but we got another hour or two out of it. So as it was, I believe Coco said something to the fact of black people were betraying themselves. Then it got into talking about, oh, we can't listen to the Democrats, the Democrat plantation or some nonsense like that. So that's what got me on the panel, listening to, again, another black person singing the praises of racists. Now, anyone who's been following the show for the last week or so knows that I've just done a show, myself and Rob Platinum, aka Schlitz Stank Liquor, that demonstrated clearly that America has always been a racist country. We discussed the 1790 Naturalization Act, which said that only free white men standing in America were allowed to be citizens. We discussed the 1870 Naturalization Act. Now, let me step back for a second. The 1790 Naturalization Act was only allowing white men to be citizens. But then Africans who are free now, newly free from slavery, we're talking about the Chinese, the Irish, anyone that they deemed to be inferior could not be American citizens. The 1870, the 1870 Naturalization Act, I believe, that was put out specifically just to allow newly freed slaves to be citizens. Now, of course, the only reason this was done because someone still needs to do the work. But by allowing just the newly freed slaves, or the formal slaves, excuse me, can't talk tonight. The former slaves were given their rights to be citizens. It still excluded Asians, Chinese, Japanese, name it. It still excluded a certain nationality. Then, of course, came the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. This was aimed specifically to prevent anyone from China, especially, from becoming a citizen, because it was perceived that these guys are taking their jobs. They're working for lower wages. Sound familiar? It's the same thing that has always been in effect. Then, of course, we had the 1924 Immigration Act. And this was the act that created the border control that a lot of people do not realize. This is why you have this thing, oh, well, you got illegals coming in at the southern border. There was never an issue about borders until it was seen that it was others coming into America, other nationalities other than white. So for the 1924 Immigration Act, they focused mainly on wanting people to come in from Northern European countries to include Western European countries, while still focusing on keeping out blacks, anyone from Africa, for example, anyone from Asia. I think there was, Irish, and also anyone from Slavic regions, because they were considered to be inferior. Now, I put all this up on the screen and I showed specifically in the search engine itself, it said that this was racist. Notice when you bring racism to the folks who are responsible for the majority of acts of racist, maiming, killing, all of a sudden, the people bringing the cause forward, they're the victims. You need to stop being victims. You need to get over slavery. Wait a minute. We need to get over slavery? The thing here is that slavery was never Black history. Surviving slavery was Black history. Enslaving others was white history. Now, again, this may sound like racist, but it's not. This is nothing more than call it an uncomfortable conversation for some folks. As I've said before, we will discuss race because there is a component of race that needs to be discussed, or I say the racial component, but I will not engage in racism. Not when I have facts that support my statements. But what does, what does not support anything going forward is listening to the folks who are the primary target of the bigotry and the racism that we see from this current administration. All right, a white nationalist administration, an administration that has the vice president doing Charlie Kirk's show directly out of the White House. A presidency that we saw the president of the United States have a known racist after his death, Charlie Kirk, flown on Air Force Two. Flags dropped in this honor of this bigot. I cannot say this enough. Charlie Kirk was a racially agitating, racist, sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot, aka a lying ass, who routinely trafficked in Southern strategy-styled hate speech that was dressed up as legitimate political discord, which was nothing more than conservative theater and disingenuous debate. And funny enough, Eric sounds just like Charlie Kirk with his nonsense. He's quick with the distortions. So I don't know if he practices in front of a mirror or he's just that quick to make a statement that sounds good, but it is not true. So there's a word for that, folks. It's called specious. Let me do this. All right, so there are many dictionaries out here, but I just chose Britannica off the bat. So we have the word again, species. Falsely appearing to be fair, just, or right. Appearing to be true, but actually false. A specious argument. He justified his actions with specious reasoning. I think I've got another definition that goes into further detail here. Here we go. Specious describes arguments, claims, or appearances that seem plausible, fair, or true on the surface, but are actually false, misleading, or illogical. It suggests a deceptive, superficial attractiveness that hides a lack of genuine merit or truth. Again, it's Fatty's platform, but I'm sitting here listening to one lie after the other. Now, I can more or less, as many people know, I can substantiate what my statements are. There is no time that I have come on anyone's panel and told a lie. But if I am sitting in a room full of blacks who are what I call the indoctrinated, and when I say the indoctrinated, I'll say this, because a lot of this has to do with religion, where you have morality that comes into place, where you have right versus correct. Right being a thing that is based on morality. Morality going back to the Bible. When you go back to the Bible, now you're going to be dealing with someone who has a subjective view of things based upon religious teachings, which themselves have been tampered with and are primarily false and lies in and of themselves. I'm not falling back on any of this. Whereas to be correct means that we're talking factual, something that involves evidence and proof, unmistaken, empirical evidence, meaning that it can be reproduced. Therefore, I do not speak to be right. I speak to be correct. So let's go ahead and move it along. So again, that's the definition of species. So why is it that species came to mind? Because Eric had the audacity to say that, oh, Europe is failing. Their health system is trash. America has a way better health system. Everybody knows this. No, it is a damn lie. Now, again, I don't want people to think that, I go against Americans. No, I go against misstated commentary. I go against fiction. I'm all in favor of facts, but what Eric was saying was not a fact. So let me go ahead and put this there to you. Does America or Europe have better health care? Which they have, but obviously Google knew what I meant. Europe generally offers better, more equitable health care than the United States. There it is, folks, right there in front of you. Featuring universal coverage, lower cost, and superior public health outcomes like higher life expectancy. So let's just break right there for a second. So for whatever reason, Eric said everything that was to the opposite of that, said that America was high. He made the statement that America was superior in our healthcare system. And I knew from the moment he brought it up, when he started hinting around, hey, do you know what England or the United Kingdom calls their healthcare system? The NHS. But be that as it may, he tried to say that, oh, the NHS is failing. They're not doing a good job. Everybody is leaving. Again, specious commentary. And you see it right here for yourselves, folks. But again, if you did not know any better, you would think that Eric was telling the truth. No, it was specious commentary. All it was a goddamn lie. Pardon my language. While the U.S. excels in cutting-edge, specialized care and shorter wait times for specialists, it suffers from high costs, lack of universal coverage, and inferior overall health metrics. Now, I'm not one to bag my country here, but facts are facts. As you've always heard me say, facts do not choose sides. People do. So what are the key differences here? European nations typically provide universal or near universal coverage, drastically reducing financial barriers to care. In contrast, the U.S. system leaves millions uninsured or underinsured, with many skipping care due to cost. Now, this is where the lies about Obamacare come into play, but there's a tab for this as well. Cost and efficiency. The U.S. spends significantly more per capita on healthcare, nearly double that of some European nations, yet often produces worse health outcomes. Administrative costs and for-profit insurance structures make U.S. healthcare less efficient. But to listen to someone like Eric and Fantastic, and even Coco, again, the Blackface Brigade. Here we go. Let's trot out and defend all of the Eurocentric lies that are told, because that's what they do. I really don't understand how it gets that way. But again, if you allow yourself to be indoctrinated in Eurocentric culture to the point that you do not understand or recognize that if your oppressor and your enslaver is also the creator of your savior, you do not realize that you've been indoctrinated. Literally, what you are listening to becomes conservative white male victimhood in blackface, told by, again, the Blackface Brigade. And it's not just those three. There are numerous blacks who fall into this category. Anton, Angry Man, to name a few. Chaotic Truth. Anyone who sits here and talks about Donald Trump, praising him and J.D. Kirk, but at the same time being dismissive of Black history being under attack, civil rights being mowed down. That is a picture of Black discontinuity. Dare I even say just culturally inept and defunct. That is what truly is betraying us. Damn Nicki Minaj. It is the folks who look like us, our skin folks, or not kinfolk, that is doing us the most damage. Let's add Candace Owens, Tim Scott, who himself came out famously and said, America is not a racist country. Sit tight, I've got something for that as well. But let's go ahead and continue on here. Let's look at health outcomes. European countries often boast higher life expectancy and lower infant mortality rates. Americans tend to have higher rates of chronic diseases, such as heart disease, compared to their European counterparts. Now, if you were to have this conversation inside of a 100% MAGA room, you would be called a liar. And of course, they'll say, oh, AI changed something. It's a lie. It's a lie. But if I were saying the opposite of this, it would be nothing but champagne bottles being popped and who knows, rice or streamers, whatever, thrown in the air. But the fact of the matter, again, is that Europe has a better healthcare system, but you can't tell that to someone who's been indoctrinated. Now take a look. Folks are coming in and they're leaving. And the reason that I'm not getting anyone staying right now, as I've said before, I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to be factual. It is not entertaining or anything that is going to stroke their confirmation bias. I've got confirmation bias as well. I was almost roped into a lie that was being told on YouTube. It was some type of news feed that just started that had an AI version of Lawrence O'Donnell from MS Now. Now I'm listening to it and something doesn't sound right, but I'm vibing on what's being said because this sounds like something that Lawrence would say. Luckily enough, I shot it over to Rob Platinum to take a look at because Rob doesn't follow some things the way that I do. Also, he's a sound engineer by trade. He happened to look and see something that I missed at the time, was that the movements of this AI character that was pretending to be Lawrence O'Donnell was not succinct. The timing was off, which I could hear. But because I was listening to the words he was saying that sounded feasible to me, I didn't catch it initially that it was AI. Once he got me broken out of my funk and I went back and took a second look, I noticed that whatever was being said by this AI Lawrence O'Donnell was not inside of the mainstream news media. Now, I say mainstream news media because that is what they are. I don't mean it as the pejorative that a lot of far-right extremists have turned it into, because it's not the fear Orwellian and xenophobe news network, aka Fox, that they're accustomed to. But what I saw was someone pushing out lies to more or less get progressives liberated and ready to roll around, again, a damn lie. Nothing that was being said but this AI was true. But of course, when you have confirmation bias, what people hear will get them stoked. Yeah, I can't believe it. Finally, they've gone after Trump. No one has gone after Trump. Mitch McConnell has not held any type of meeting to where Trump was caught on tape saying that he didn't care about what so-and-so said. He's going to primary all of them. Trump didn't say any of that. But the AI made that statement, and therefore those with confirmation bias were all there for it. And I almost got took by that. So again, folks, it's the species commentary that we've got to be aware of. But to my African Americans, because black is a color in the coloring box, we're talking nationality here. To my African Americans, understand that we have our own that are undermining us. Any African American face that you see touting the Trump administration and those in the Trump administration are not ones who are looking at our unity, looking to help us get past and achieve what's attempted to be taken away from us, which are our rights. Civil rights and others came before us, endured dogs, endured water hoses, endured lynchings, knowing that if they went to this voting box or the ballot box, that they might be targets of violence, targets of harassment, but they did it anyway. We don't have those type of individuals inside of today's society. It's almost as if they've been bred out. But let me back off of this to save that for some of the end commentary. Let's keep going here. Patient satisfaction. We're at the end here. Studies often report higher patient satisfaction with healthcare quality and accessibility in Europe compared to the US, where many feel the system is too expensive and complex. So here's a summary table that take upon your time to go through. Let's do this real fast. Cost in the United States, very high out of pocket. Fatty was speaking to this. And then in Europe, lower, it's tax funded and subsidized. Coverage, private dominated, not universal in the States, but in Europe, excuse me, universal and public funded. So the outcomes, we talked about lower life expectancy already in the US, but higher in Europe. Again, accessibility, higher costs in the States, but high accessibility in Europe. While the US provides high quality care for those with excellent insurance or high income, Europe's model generally delivers better value and health equity for the average citizen. So if you see fantastic, arrogant anyone, tell them I said that they lied. And then if you want to substantiate and prove to them, go ahead and type in what I've done and see what you get. I got no lies to tell you folks. All right, so what is the average cost of healthcare in the US? Now, I believe Eric said something like $5 or $6. I'm not sure where he was going with that. But again, specious commentary. It sounds good for some of these folks out here that you might know. Maybe you might be that type of person who's listening and watching this in the replay. But if you did not know any better, it sounded like Eric was spitting game. He was spitting nonsense. What is the average cost of healthcare in the U.S.? In 2023, U.S. healthcare spending reached approximately $4.9 trillion, averaging $14,570 per person. That's more than this $5 nonsense that Eric was talking about, making it amongst the highest in the world. Employer-sponsored family health insurance premiums often exceed $27,000 annually, with consumers paying an average of over $1,100 to $1,600 out of pocket, depending on the year. And again, folks, as I said, we're going to look at the lies that come with this because people say, oh, Obamacare did this. So I'm just going to go ahead and just scroll this real fast just for everyone to get a look here. But I kept my search string rather short. So if you want to see what you come up with, again, type the same thing. All right, so what are the lies about the Affordable Care Act? Commonly cited misinformation about the Affordable Care Act includes claims that it caused sky-high premiums and death panels, or that it covers undocumented immigrants. Now, you heard Coco talking this nonsense. Oh, well, they're putting immigrants in hotels and paying for. Where do they get this shit from? They get it from people like Eric. They got it from Charlie Kirk. They get it from J.D. Vance, aka J.D. Kirk. They get it from Donald Trump. They get it from his entire damn cabinet. Everyone in Trump's cabinet lost an election fair and square. But because of the fact they were touting the nonsense that Trump wanted to hear, they got hired and put into his cabinet. So we have a veritable cabinet of losers, literal losers that are working for Donald Trump only because they were for his nonsense. Not that any of us any good, but they were for what he was saying. Therefore, they played to an audience of one as they were losing. Excuse me. Did I finish reading this? Well, let's go ahead through just in case I missed anything. Critics have often highlighted increased costs, fraud, and reduced choice as failures of the law. Conversely, supporters argue that the law improved coverage, protected pre-existing conditions, and despite challenges, has been mischaracterized by opponents. So what are some key points of debate and myths? Death panels. Oh, excuse me. A prominent early claim was that the ACA would create government-run panels to decide if seniors received care, which was deemed a lie, as no such panels were created. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. President Obama's promise that people could keep their plans from doctors proved false for some, as many insurance plans were canceled for not meeting the new, higher standards of coverage. Premiums and costs. Critics argue that the ACA caused premiums to skyrocket, while supporters claim the law actually slowed the growth of health spending. Coverage for undocumented immigrants. The law does not allow undocumented immigrants to buy insurance on the ACA marketplace or receive federal subsidies. I don't know how many times this has to be said. But after you get through saying it, you've got, and depending upon what platform you're on, you got the Blackface Brigade back at it. Oh, the premiums went to the sky, went to the roof. They went sky high, and they're allowing immigrants to come into the country and get health care benefits. Where are they getting this from? They're getting it from conservative media. The penalty for not having insurance was heavily debated, with arguments over whether it constituted a tax, which the Supreme Court later ruled it did. Recent reports have pointed to billions in wasted taxpayer dollars due to fraud, with some cases involving the misuse of Social Security numbers for subsidized coverage. Critics argue that ACA did not reduce medical bankruptcies and that access to insurance did not equate to better access to care. So as we can see here, there are more lies to be told about this than there are truths that people are willing to speak. But if you have anyone who's going to make a statement that it sounds intelligent, people are going to believe it. So this is my proof that it's not. Fatty, if you're watching this, make sure you send this out to anyone whose name I brought up here, who keeps telling these same damn lies about healthcare. All right, so this was one that I really wanted to hit on, because now this is where Fantastic's lie came in. Where, again, I don't know what it is, but excuse me, Fantastic has always been thumbs up and shouting out RFK Jr. He is not a doctor. He was a lawyer. I can't recall if he was a good one or not. But because of the name Kennedy, and of course there's wealth that comes with it, he has access to certain circles. People who realize the access that Kennedy has gave him this nonsense to speak of. Kennedy spoke of this nonsense, and it was appealing to people in right-wing circles who thought ivermectin was a good cure for COVID. So what do we have as a result? We've got measles that's made its way back. We haven't seen that in almost 25 years. We've got the World Health Organization seeing America drop out from the fold. The World Health Organization. And we've also seen America's status for health slip overall. All of this came to be as of 20 January 2025. But I digress. Is there evidence that healthcare in America has declined since Trump took office in 2025? Evidence from 2025 indicates a significant decline in American healthcare access and stability, driven by administration policies, funding freezes, and staff cuts at health agencies. Key reports highlighting rising costs, increased uninsured populations, rural hospital closures, and weakened health equity, with projections suggesting further declines in coverage in 2026. Now, while Fantastic is talking about, oh, y'all gonna be broke, look at the advantage we should be taking as far as finances. What are you talking about taking advantage of things financially? The key thing is taking advantage of it. So for whatever reason, we have blacks who are sitting here who will never participate in any of these financial misdeeds that are going on right now, where we're seeing money being clawed back from programs that it was already allotted for. We see such actions as children's cancer, Alzheimer's research for adults, money for U.S. AIDS, AIDS research, all that money, we're talking in the billions, that was clawed back. And now we see that being given as bonuses to ICE agents who are shooting Americans in the street. So where is this money that supposedly is out here flowing? Oh, there's gold, there's silver. Everyone talks this nonsense. If you don't do anything about it now, you'll be broke and poor by 2030. If we don't do anything right now as people, just talking about blacks right now, we're not going to even be probably citizens in our own country. The way that Trump is going right now, trying to remove anything to do with civil rights, we'll end up being permanent aliens. But again, that's just my unsubstantiated speculation, the same as fantastic unsubstantiated speculation about 2030 and wealth. But more to be on that, because I think we're going to see a political show brought back by Fatty, and I might participate just a little bit more because someone has got to keep the rules in play. So key funding of healthcare decline. The Trump administration delayed and withheld federal grants, including interrupting funds for community health centers in at least 10 states, causing some to close. Eric didn't have that conversation. Neither did Fantastic. Projections indicated that over 7 million fewer Americans will have subsidized coverage by 2026, with an estimated 4.8 million more uninsured. Policies and funding shifts have pushed rural hospitals toward closure or service reductions, with reports noting closures in states like Texas. But you don't hear anything coming out of Texas about their hospitals having to close because of the tampering of the Trump administration with healthcare. Haven't heard anything about that, have you? But you've heard about them trying to get the 10 Commandments put inside of schools. You've heard about them wanting to make sure that, let's get a turning point chapter on every campus if we can. You hear that type of bloviation and this type of nonsense, but you never hear things about how healthcare has been negatively affected. Not to mention that measles outbreak I mentioned earlier. Where do you think that started? What do you think the majority of it is amassed right now? In Texas. But you don't hear them talk about it. Let's keep rolling. The Make America Healthy Again agenda included mass layoffs at the CDC and FDA. Again, this is where Fantastic said, look at all the good work that he's doing. He's getting rid of all these programs that were a burden to the system. That there was lies. He's got rid of red dye. He's got rid of such. No, what he's done is gotten rid of stability. Everything that we have seen from Robert Kennedy has been nothing but the undermining and pretty much the destabilizing of American healthcare. But the problem is that when you have enough folks who won't do anything about it and don't show up to vote, this is the type of shit, get my language, that we end up with. This is what we get. And then, of course, you're always going to have the MAGA extremists, the Christian nationalists. And let's not forget here, I want you people to understand this. Make sure this is a part of your dialect. You have the Blackface Brigade speaking conservative white male victimhood, supporting all the statements from MAGA. Can't tell you any lies, folks. Despite aims to reform, early 2025 data showed rising insurance premiums and prescription drug prices, exacerbating financial stress for households. But yet, I do recall Trump mentioning, what was it, Trump RX or something like that? Doesn't sound like it's been of any benefit to anyone. These actions, along with the targeting of reproductive and preventative care services, have led to what some analysts describe as a historic harm and a broken system in 2025. Now, where was this commentary for any of us who are watching the show with Fatty tonight? I couldn't get a word in edgewise about the thing. That's another thing that Eric has a bad habit of doing, that he just tramples over anyone who's speaking, to include the host at times. Now, he and I have been on maybe one or two other panels in the past, but even when I'm not there, it's always a derailment from him, along with some type of bloviation and him pretty much running the show into the ground for whatever reason. But getting away from him, listening to Fantastic is another issue that I have. And this is, we're cool. Both of us prior military. We do not hate each other, but we do see significant difference in our ideologies, meaning that he's a Trump supporter. He is indoctrinated. He is all in, whereas I am not, as I said before, just to make sure no one knows. Hey, this is me. Make no mistake. Yep, that's why it was going on MC Time. I cursed. and I excuse myself for it, but make sure that it's understood. You don't hear me sitting here like Eddie Murphy. Hey, yeah, shit, fix that motherfucker pussy. Damn. No, I don't do that. But if I have one slip, I will say so, and I will excuse myself, or I will preface it, forgive me, as I normally do. But otherwise, yes, I said a curse word, but it is not going to be something that you hear in tandem throughout the program. All right, so let's stay focused. But thanks for dropping in, man. All right, so let's move on to the next. So another thing that came up, and I want to say that this was probably Coco, the health coach, where she said, or it was probably her in tandem with Fantastic, Obama didn't do nothing. There was nothing he did. And I believe her statement was, what did Obama ever do for black people? But yet she turns around later and says, Obama wasn't there for black people. He was there to be everybody's president. So there was a contradiction. No one called her out on that. Again, I couldn't get a word in edgewise, but still, at one point in time, she's saying, what did Obama do for black people? Then turns around and makes the statement, well, he wasn't a president just for black people. He was everybody's president. I agree with that. But yet, notice how people will pick sides in the conversation that they choose to make. President Barack Obama's, hold on for a second. Yeah, like I said, I know you were joking. No issues with that, man. None at all. President Barack Obama's key accomplishments focused on healthcare reform, economic recovery from the 2008 recession, environmental protection, and major social reform policy, and judicial shifts. Major actions included passing the Affordable Care Act, saving the auto industry, authorizing the mission against Osama bin Laden, and legalizing same-sex marriage. Now, that is a big hang-up that we know with the conservative side, because they think Jesus is real, and because of the fact that they think Jesus is real, they want to talk about commandments and honoring their God or whatever. But they are the most, if this individual existed, the most godless individuals that I've seen who follow absolutely nothing. They don't love their neighbors. They hate them. They call them the LGBTQ folks, or alphabet soup. They call them, pardon my language, call niggas. They call us monkeys. How do I know? Just go back and look at what the young conservatives have to say when their chat was busted wide open. And then, of course, you got J.D. Vance, a.k.a. J.D. Kirk, running to their defense. Oh, these are just kids. Why are these liberals trying to destroy the lives of children or lives of kids? And these kids were up to the age of 34 years of age. Yep, Tyler did it again. Notice that I am really about what we're talking about right now. Even though it's just a few of us here, it'll live on through the replay. But again, you had J.D. Kirk running his tail out here, trying to defend grown folks for making jokes about gas chambers, calling blacks monkeys, talking about hangings, all this other type of nonsense. I did a show on that. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll repost the show sometime this week. But again, these are the same folks who are supposed to be holier than thou, right? Absolutely not. Don't fall for it. So let's start here again. Extended healthcare coverage to over 20 million Americans, reducing the uninsured rate below 10%. Rescue the auto industry. We did that. Legalize same-sex. We did that. Signed the Paris Agreement, set emission standards, and protected more public land, water than any predecessor. But you don't hear those comments, do you? It's always, Obama didn't do a single thing. Well, did he not do a single thing for black folks? Did he not do a single thing for America in whole? Again, lies. His accomplishments are there, but unless you talk to people or in circles where you hear this, you're going to hear specious commentary. Authorized the 2011 special operations raid that killed the leader of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden. Signed the Dodd-Frank Act to reform financial regulations, including the BOLCO rule. Now, if you don't remember the Dodd-Frank, for the most part, this is where you had the issue of, let's say, MasterCard or someone, always having these hidden fees. Every time you look around, wait a minute, I just paid this. How is it that my money did not go towards the premium or whatnot? It didn't go to what I expected it to. Why do I owe more? Why are my rates going up? The Obama administration zapped that in the bud, I recall. I can damn near remember just about when it came out because the companies were complaining that they can't just arbitrarily raise their rates anymore. That was a good thing. Oh, yeah, thank you, Ty. Consumer protection. Exactly. And that's one thing that when the Trump administration got in, they started rolling everything back. Everything back. Now, on the topic of the Trump administration, now Eric and I went back and forth for a second when I made the statement, or actually it was Coco who said something about Trump deciding to run, or I believe it was her, after the correspondence dinner. I made the statement that Trump was not active. And when I say active, the word itself, someone is in motion. Let's do this, folks. Hold on. Let me do this. Let's look at the definition of the word active. What is the definition? Word. So again, there was specious commentary on what active was. Eric stated, well, Trump ran for president in 2000. That means that he was active. He acted. No, no, no. Now, this may not hit on what I'm looking for. But when I say active, at least the way that I use active, I was stating in the sense of being consistent in consistent motion, actively pursuing, which means that I am out here trying to achieve something. I am after a goal. I am relentless. That's what I meant by active, not active of, oh, he actively campaigned in 2000. Okay, so what happened between 2000 and 2015? He didn't do anything other than complain starting in 2008 about Obama. Didn't complain about anybody else, but as soon as a black man got into office, that's when it all started really with Trump. Otherwise, everyone thought Trump was cool. Yeah, he did seem he had some ways about him that was interesting. He was in a couple of movies, but who he truly was, for folks who did not realize everything this man has been since the 70s, that came out. Some of us are wondering, how could you not know this? But oh, that's right. The only reason that most people knew Trump was through, what was that show, The Apprentice, where even the people who produced the show said that they made that show to make Trump look like the success he wasn't. I digress. Anyway, spurious, active, engaging or ready to engage in physical, energetic pursuits, pursuing an occupation or activity at a particular place or in a particular way. Other thing, working operative. The old mill was active until electrical, the receiver, volcano, grammar. So it's not really touching on active the way that I was speaking of it, but both of us were, I'll say, subjective in the way that we looked at active. Whereas active to Eric was, well, he actually campaigned, so that means he was active. No, active to me is continuous. Oh, this is an active person. She's always exercising. He's always studying. He's always on the go, meaning it is continuous. That's the active or the expression of active that I meant. So if we want to call ourselves both right, okay, so be it. But I think the way that I use active is more in line to how I expressed Donald Trump's political aspirations. He did not get active and working in politics until Obama shut him back down after he spent years talking about birther lies. Let's see, Obama's certificate, is he even American? Can he be president? He wasn't born in America. All this type of shit that. Yes, time. I must be worked up a bit tonight. So what is that, 3 now? Yeah, I must be worked up. This is sliding out right now. Again, I have no more disappointment greater than watching black folks sit here and perpetuate lies in favor of an administration that is tearing down the same type of rights and benefits that they have. but yet you are touting these folks. That's enough to make you lose your shizzle listening to this nonsense. Anyway, let's get back to where we were. Obama negotiated the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action to limit Iran's nuclear program. Oh, I know you didn't say anything, Time. I'm just saying that again. I recognize what I've said. Remember, I told you that I hold myself accountable than I would anybody else. So yeah, this has really got me smoked, man. Had you been there to see this nonsense? Now, I think what I'm going to end up doing is probably another show, but probably with a panel, getting more into what we're discussing right now. Yeah, this is where a lot of our issues lie, is that religion is one of the last aspects of slavery that holds us back. Now, on top of that, there's still a great deal amount of blacks who seem to believe, and this is something that I heard Coco, once again, Coco the health coach say, oh, well, the Democrats of the 80s or the Democrats of today are not the same Democrats that were in the 80s. Actually, yes, it is. What's not the same that she failed to mention is that the Republicans of today are still the same Republicans of the 80s. And they were all racist, they were bigots, and there was always legislation that worked towards the disadvantage or disparagement of people of color. John, I believe you hold yourself to an unreasonable standard, but I will comply with the rules in your house. Hey man, there's nothing unreasonable to a person to moderate themselves to where they show a level of decorum in public. Now notice on my platform, again, we don't have people up here calling each other niggas and bitches and hoes and all this type of stuff. Yeah, no, we don't do that because this is not that type of platform. But I put it together, as I told Joe, this is where I have people who act in a measure, again, of decorum, who will speak factually, who will present themselves in a manner to where they speak in clear, precise diction, and they provide factual information that can be traced. But for the most part, the standard here is one about presentation. Have you ever heard the saying that you dress for success or you dress for the job that you want? You present yourself for the opportunities that you would like to have. But you also have to make sure that you carry yourself in a manner. And this is not about acting white, as some blacks have accused me of being. I'm sure I'm not the only one. It's about making sure that when our children look back at us, when they get to be of age, they have children, this platform, a value conversation, is going to be one that should be recognized as maintaining decorum, maintaining a standard, maintaining a level of accountability that we should be striving for. Everything that we see breaking down around us when we go to different black content creators who are up here just cussing, acting a fool. You're trying to give advice that's supposed to be useful, but then again, how are you going to speak to a woman and try and get supposedly her to correct her ways, but you're calling them bitches at the same time? As I said, folks don't find that or won't find that over here. Oh, I appreciate it, man. But all means, give me your thoughts. And as I've said before, if you want to jump up here for a second, hey, let me know. I'll put the link down. I have no problem with having comments with anyone as long as they understand what I do here. And the rule is simply, we do not get up here and act some fools. There's no cussing, there's no bitches, there's no hoes, there's no niggas, there's none of that. We have the conversation. And if people are unable to regulate their behavior, then I'm all fine for the guys staying inside the chat and we communicate that way. But otherwise, still, say what you got to say. All right, so getting back to this, reopened diplomatic relations and the U.S. Embassy in Havana visiting in 2016. Remember how the chat, he went to Cuba. He went to Cuba, but in 2018, Trump went to North Korea. Come on, folks. All right, so judicial appointments. Appointed Supreme Court Justices Sonia Sotomayor and Alina Kagan and a record number of diverse federal judges. Created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and passed bipartisan education reforms, which I think Betsy DeVos took an axe to once she got in office. But again, these are Obama's top 10 accomplishments. So if you want to see for yourselves, just type in what I'm putting inside the search engine, and you should get the exact same thing or something close to it. Because again, AI has a tendency, if it doesn't understand what's being asked, it will look at it from the perspective of information around and then provide an answer. So it's not always going to be the correct answer. So you've got to be real careful about how you make requests when you're doing searches. All right, so this is the big thing here. Now, if you were on my show the other night, you saw that I presented 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 or 8. Well, actually 4 pieces of legislation, and then 3 pieces of, we'll call it what it is, white supremacist doctrine that more or less validated that America has always been a racist country. So the question that I threw in here, per evidence of history, meaning that now my question is going to have to be searched through the history of the U.S. Anything where the immigration laws, naturalization laws, you name it, that will have to be reviewed in order to provide an answer. Per evidence of history, has America been a racist country from inception? And here's what I got. Based on historical evidence, America has functioned with systemic racism since its inception, rooted in the foundational contradiction of declaring liberty while maintaining chattel slavery. The nation was built on white supremacy. Right here, this is not Jon H.E.N.R.Y making this up, which justified the theft of indigenous lands, genocide, and the enslavement of African people. Don't forget Obama and his DOJ getting rid of racist judges nationwide. It's part of the reason why Eric Holder has a big target on him. Yep. We need to discuss that a little bit further. I'm thinking that I probably need to get another show together for the most part to really look at what's happening inside the legal system right now. When we look at the EEOC saying that, oh, if you're a white man and you've been discriminated against, come see us. You can probably put in a claim. Everything that was put in place for the folks who were disenfranchised is now being utilized for folks who are responsible for the victimization. Madness. Let's start where we slavery was an entrenched system during the founding with key constitutional provisions providing advantages to slaveholders. The colonization of North America involved the forced removal and destruction of indigenous peoples, with Native Americans not recognized as citizens until 1924. But remember now, the 1924 Immigration Act, there was still a level of bias that was instituted. That was also another law that was based in white supremacy. I believe Calvin Coolidge was the president at the time who was responsible for, if not championing that, but being a strong supporter of it. Racism was embedded in social institutions, policies, and laws influencing criminal justice, housing, and voting rights well beyond the 19th century. The belief in white superiority underpinned the nation's social and legal structure, influencing policies even after the abolition of slavery. While significant legal changes have occurred, the historical record indicates that racism has been a central systemic component of American history from its origin. But yet, when you bring it up that America is a racist country, look how many people run to shout you down. Oh, you're not a patriot. You don't love America. No, I don't love the racism that America has championed. But I enjoy the fact that there are people who are now waking up to the fact and realize that with this form of communication we have, the internet and everything else that comes with it, information that would have never been known, because a lot of people don't go to libraries anymore, is now here to be assessed. But we have to be careful of how we request this information for being reviewed. Fact of the matter is that America has always been a racist country. Not me. Facts are right there. MC Time, they had a judge, Lane Walker, around here in Beaumont, Texas, that gave out 1,000,000 years to black people around here. He got caught up in that Eric Holder Justice Department sweep. Now that is something worth looking into a little bit further. By the way, folks, if anyone wants to provide any questions to me that you would like me to host on the show, here's an email address that I'm using for the moment. I've got to get one of my other domains turned back on. Right. Stand by. So if you have any questions, comments, queries, by all means, please send something there. And also, let me hold that to the end here, because I don't want to do too much at once. But getting back to what I'm saying here, yes, America has always been a racist country. And if you would like to see anything pertaining to what I pulled up right now, here is your URL search. Well, so let's say your search is a search. Now let's go ahead and put foot to backside. And let's just take a look at what's going on when we talk about slavery having always, or should I say, racism having is late, folks. Forgive me. Racism having always been a part of America's history. So I don't know if many of you remember here, but about maybe a week or two ago, there was an exhibit that was pried off the wall, literally pried off the wall, because it was Black history. And of course, because it wasn't this patriotic history initiative that Donald Trump had launched, it was perceived to be racist and division. Let's just go ahead and get into this. Judge calls Justice Department statements on slavery exhibit display dangerous and horrifying. Now you have got to hear this mess right here, folks. Check this out. A federal judge warned Justice Department lawyers on Friday that they were making dangerous and horrifying statements when they said, and I quote, "The Trump administration can decide what part of American history to display at National Park Service sites." So they're basically trying to say that Trump can decide what is history that needs to be heard and what is not. The sharp exchange erupted during a hearing in Philadelphia over the abrupt removal of an exhibit on the history of slavery at the site of the former president's house on Independence Mall. The city, which worked in tandem with the Park Service on the exhibit 2 decades ago, was stunned to find workers this month using crowbars to remove outdoor plaques, panels, and other materials that told the stories of the 9 people who had been enslaved there. Some of the history had only been unearthed in the past quarter century. So a lot of folks will say, oh, this is AI. This is not true. This is a lie. I and the other folks like myself went out, took a look, and we found news stories that pretty much corroborated what was out there. So this is a correlational type of, not a study, but a correlational, I'll say review for the lack of a better expression. But if you find stories, even though you may not agree with it, but they are discussing the same thing, they're talking about a same basic premise, that is not AI. That is not misinformation. That is fact. Now, how it gets presented when you dive into it, if you're listening to someone like Eric providing specious commentary, it may sound good, but it will all be a lie through and through. But this was fact. They had actually taken down an exhibit because under the guidance that Donald Trump has put out, well, this isn't patriotic. Take it down. This is divisive. But yet back in 2017, when the slave exhibition was put up, he said it was a beautiful thing. I'm paraphrasing right now, but you know how Trump is. Oh, it was beautiful. You know, there's a lot of love, and you know, it's really great that we give respect to our Black Americans and recognizing slavery as being all this type of nonsense. So he was all for this in 2017, but as soon as the Project 2025 was put together and he got back in the White House, how he really felt about everything is being displayed. That's what we're seeing right now. Excuse me. You can't erase history once you've learned it. It doesn't work that way, said senior U.S. District Judge Cynthia Ruff, we'll say Roof right now, an appointee of President George W. Bush. The removal followed President Donald Trump's executive order restoring truth and sanity to American history at the nation's museums, parks, and landmarks. Restoring truth and sanity to American history. Now, there was a show I did a while back that talked about the Daughters of the Confederacy, and their name pretty much says it all. But these gals were responsible for what we have here when you talk about romanticizing the South's loss. And so you've got this failed narrative of the Confederacy. That's not the exact name, but that's the premise. The failed narrative of the Confederacy saying that they were bullied or intimidated and that the whole fight they had was not about slavery, but it was about states' rights, which was Southern strategy to speak. It was never about states' rights. It was about slavery because that's what was on the succession paperwork from the 11 states that seceded from the Union. South Carolina, for example, had it in print that slavery was the issue. But yet to listen to any of these apologists out here, they will tell you, oh no, it was states' rights. In Philadelphia, the materials were put in a pickup truck and then into storage. And this is what they pried off the wall, by the way. This is Black history that they tore off the wall with crowbars. There's a video for this if you look it up. In Philadelphia, the materials were put in a pickup truck and then into storage, leading Roof to voice concerns about whether they were damaged. Although many people feel strongly about this exhibit one way, other people may disagree or feel strongly another way, said Assistant U.S. Attorney Gregory Endenberg. Ultimately, the government gets to choose the message it wants to convey. Roof swiftly cut him off. That is a dangerous statement you're making. Let's go back and look at this nonsense dude came out. Ultimately, the government gets to choose the message it wants to convey. No, you can't, because that goes against free speech. You can make a message, but you can't choose a message that's going to speak for everyone that now disenfranchises. Again, this is the same nonsense I've been talking about. The main individual or individuals or entity, we'll say entity, the main entity calling anyone else a victim for standing up and making statements about disparaging acts such as this always seem the ones who are focused on instead of people focusing on the person or the entity who was primarily responsible for the victimizing. That is a dangerous statement you're making. It's horrifying to listen to. It changes on the whims of someone in charge. And exactly that's what it is. I'm sorry, that is not what we elected anybody for. Oh yeah, I'm going to make sure I need to post this on my YouTube page here. It changes on the whims of someone in charge. I'm sorry, that is not what we elected anybody for. Roof heard hours of testimony Friday from former city officials who had helped plan the exhibit and said the city had kicked in $1.5 million toward the project. She plans to visit both the storage area and the site before ruling on the city's request to have the exhibit restored. But she asked Justice Department lawyers to ensure that nothing else is disturbed. Endenberg said the Park Service routinely changes its exhibits and tours and argued that the government cannot be forced to tell a certain story. Oh, snap. Do you see this? You can't force the government to tell a certain story. What are you talking about, tell a certain story? It's fact. But only because of the fact it is something that goes against this bias that has been a part of Project 2025 and Donald Trump's very beginning. This is why we have a vote. And you have to use it. This is the distortion of history that I speak about specifically. It sounds intelligent, it sounds legible, but it is a lie. But let's get on with it. But lawyers for the city and other advocates said the Park Service does not have a carte blanche to interpret the nation's history as it sees fit. That is something that you're seeing from this administration that they are stating. Oh no, I determine what is history. This is not patriotic. Remember when the 1619 Project first came out? Everything about the 1619 Project was put in place to give everyone an education about slavery if they were not fully up on it, if they were unaware of certain acts, such as, get this, slavery in Africa. Now we know that all the what I say is feckless white apologists, and when I say that, I'm talking about folks from the conservative side who make excuses for Charlie Kirk, make excuses for Donald Trump, and also J.D. Vance, aka J.D. Kirk. Those are the three folks that excuses are made for when their bigotry is out in front. And they act like we can't see this. Who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes? The fecklessness of this. So to sit here and believe that, well, history is however I determine it. Okay, now we're starting to get into areas where somebody believes that they are a king. And I believe, just as a filthy plug here, there's supposed to be some No Kings protests coming up in the next week or so. Check it out. Excuse me. The exhibit includes biographical details about the 9 people enslaved by George and Martha Washington at the presidential mansion. Now, only their names, Austin, Paris, Hercules, Christopher Shields, Richmond, Giles, One, Judge Maul, and Joe, remain engraved into a cement wall. Yes, it's pretty much coming down to the bottom of the ninth, man, but it's not completely gone as of yet. So, time, if you're going to tune in, man, make sure that you let people know what's being discussed on this platform. We still have some time before we hit zero barrier. It's getting late in the game, but the game is not over as of yet. Now, the biggest problem that I see right now comes from inside the Black community. These particular types, I think of. You got the woefully miseducated or undereducated. You got the conservatively indoctrinated. And then you have the culturally disconnected. Now, that last group, the culturally disconnected, I reserve for FBA, Foundational Black Americans, aka Foundational Black, Foundational Black Asher. Those are the 3 individuals that we have to deal with that is undermining the Black community and making it harder for us to unify, especially with the third one, launching a war against the Black diaspora. Oh, they're not like us. These immigrants, these Black immigrants coming into the country. It's like, wait a minute. If you listen to it, that sounds like the same type of white male conservative victimhood that you hear from the other side. But now, as I said, when I talk about the Blackface Brigade, you got that same type of commentary coming from FBA. And I consider them to be the Magical Negro Coalition. And I say that because of the conjuring they're doing. They're trying to conjure up some type of ideology that is going to take away from the trials and tribulations of the Africans, the African Americans who suffered during the course of slavery. They're trying to retroactively pin drop this divisive ideology of theirs of discriminating against the Black diaspora by trying to create some type of history by usurping or co-opting history of the African Americans or the slaves, the African Americans who were slaves in America. You atheists, man, you know how Black people are with atheists. Yeah, don't touch my Jesus. Oh no, I'm bathed in the blood. As I've said before, and I've shown on other shows, Jesus never existed, but different show. But the fact of the matter, as I'm saying here, is that we are at war with each other. It's like when you hear someone say, again, well, our experiences are different. You know, he's over in Jamaica, he's over in Haiti. His experience is not the same as mine. Okay, let me throw this out here. We'll say MC Time is in Texas. Time, remind me again, you're in Texas, right? Put a 1 in the box, Time, if you're still here if you're in Texas, and put a 2 if you're in another state. So we'll just say that MC Time is in Texas. I believe he said in Texas. I'm in Tennessee. So while Time is in Texas and I'm in Tennessee, we both go out of our houses to go to school one day. And while at school, some kids, white kids, call us both, call us niggas. Now, even though he's in Texas and I'm in Tennessee, can we say that we both are experiencing racism? Can we both say that we are experiencing racism as being the same, which is discrimination of us based upon our skin color? The answer would be yes. So again, Time is in Texas, I'm in Tennessee. For whatever reason, someone throws a brick through my window that says, "Here you go home." The same is done to him in his home. A brick goes through his window, "You're home." Is it reasonable to say that we are both experiencing racism, even though we are not in the same state? Now let's take that experience, and now both Time and I are in America. We have bricks thrown through our windows, telling us, "Nigga, go home." We've been called while we are in school. Now imagine the same thing for someone in Haiti or Jamaica or the Caribbean, where someone's throwing bricks through their windows, insulting them in school. Now, them being in a different country, is their experience of racism really a different experience? I said this, I don't know who I could peacefully share your stream with. Yes, Texas 1, okay. All right, not a problem. If you can't share it, then so be it. But if you want to incite a riot, go ahead and share it anyway. But the fact that I'm making here, folks, is that regardless of where we are as Blacks diaspora, whether it be in Africa, whether it be in Haiti, whether it be in Jamaica, the Caribbean, whether it be in Brazil, because or Panama, we do have Blacks there because people seem to not understand that before Africans were brought to the U.S., they were brought to the Caribbean, to like Antigua, Jamaica, the Caribbean, because the thought was that maybe they'll be productive if we bring them to a place that is similar to where we took them from. So it's not always about where we ended up, because we still have the exact same experiences. That's something that FBA is foolishly and ignorant about understanding. Instead of focusing on where we were dropped off, we need to look at as a whole where we were taken from. Now, those are not my words. Those are the words of Jon H.E.N.R.Y Clarke. It is not about where the boat dropped us off, but where we were taken from, where they got us. There were no Noops, there were no Kappas, there were no Alphas, there were no Baptists, there were no Methodists, no Masons. There was none of that when the boats left from Africa. The very, very first was, funny enough, left from Africa and went to Spain. People don't know that. Oh yeah, there was the first slave trade that went on from Africa to Spain. Then from Spain to the New World. Even when there was the American slave trade going from Africa directly to America, that trade between Spain and Africa was still going on. So you had two simultaneous slave trades that were going on. I did a show on this. If I need to, maybe I'll do what I'll call a valued moment or something like that, a valued note, something real quick that may be 5 to 10 minutes of some facts that I may drop off. It sounds like something that I need to do. But getting back to that and bringing this all back in, yes, America has always been a racist country. And even right now, you can see that if the rules don't work, then we'll just create them out of thin air. History is how we make it, right? Or let me use the exact phrase here that we just heard. Ultimately, this is Birkin, the government guy. Ultimately, he said the government gets to choose the message it wants to convey. Yeah, folks, no, we can have none of that. It's already bad enough we see things being changed inside of not the Constitution, but the policies that are being changed. Right when Donald Trump came into office, Executive Order 11264, which prohibited segregation on DoD contracts. Donald Trump took it off. Now it's obscure and not everyone knows about it, but there's not much that can be done as long as the Civil Rights Act is still in good standing. But we see that he is slowly trying to find a way to work his way to that. But what do you do with Easter eggs? Well, I've got to start conditioning people to believe that there's a problem. Oh, we have to do something about mail-in voting. It's going to be a problem. People are going to be cheating. Notice Trump threw that out in the summer of 2024. Actually threw it out back in 2020 as well. But the thing was, he's priming the pump. The same thing with civil rights. Black history. It's divisive. Civil rights. No, I'm sorry. That was Charlie Kirk who said, oh, civil rights was the worst thing that could have ever happened. His words, not mine. But funny enough, people will defend him, say, oh, that's not racist. As long as Charlie Kirk did not call someone a word that sounds like, for blacks, trigger, for Hispanics, something that sounds like jetpack, for anyone from China, something that sounds like pink. As long as these guys do not use those direct racist terms, well, I didn't hear anything racist. I mean, the pure disingenuous of what we're facing right now in the face of facts. But if no one is going to push these facts, if no one is going to stand on it, what will become of it? Clearly in my generation right now, when I say my generation, I'm talking about Gen X from 1965 to 1980. We came in behind the civil rights movement 5 years after the ending of Jim Crow. And for whatever reason, I am ashamed to say that I did not take an interest the way I needed to until almost maybe 8 or 10 years ago, when I started paying attention to what was happening. Maybe that's why there's not enough of us from my generation around here to fight what is happening right now, because too many folks in Generation X going into Generation Y now seem to think that Charlie Kirk is all right. I mean, again, what are you going to do with black folks who are sitting here touting the administration that is tearing down their very culture, but they're still up in arms saying that, oh, hey, I don't see anything racist. Donald Trump has done more for blacks than anybody else. What would the folks who sacrificed their lives to get us the privileges, for me to even sit here right now, for me to own my own home, for me to go out and have a job, for me to be able to walk down the street and not be met with violence, although it still does happen, but for overall, not dealing with, let's say, back in the 1800s or even back during slavery, where the average African American can expect to have been met with manipulation, coercion, and the sharp tongue of a bullwhip just because of the color of their skin. Granted, it is not back to that as of yet, but you can see musings of people who would just can't wait, finding some reason to look for altercation with us. But the best way to do that now is join ICE. What do they give you? A $50,000 signing bonus, 3 weeks of training, and then you're out here nightsticking the color or whoever else. And then you have a badge and qualified immunity backing you up. Where are we going to, folks? You know what? Maybe a lecture would be good down the road here, just to bring some perspective to what I'm talking about, because I hope this is coming off as something that is useful to everyone, something that will give you an idea of what's happening around us. Book that you watched that had a good, strong statement or statements. Evil does not become good. Wrong does not become right. A lie does not become the truth just because it's accepted by the masses. That's work that we need to get to, folks. All right, well, I think I've done enough that I can for the evening. MC Tyne, I want to say thank you for showing up, man, for being here, for dealing with the ramblings and goings on here. Much appreciated. Hopefully you make it back again. I've got 2 folks out there. Appreciate you for checking this in as well. Replay gang, have any comments, by all means, post it. If you need to, send it out to other folks if need be to get them on this platform talking right about now. Right. Hey, you know what you need to do, man. If I put this out here to you, make it known that you're part of the woods as well, right? So find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe if this is what you're looking for. Again, Agent Smith, Marcus, and MC Tyne, thank you guys for rolling through. I'll check you some other time, all right? We out.